Hey guys, in this video we're going to work through our translation worksheet for chapter 3. Now this translation worksheet requires you to parse nouns. If you haven't watched the video called How to Decode Parse a Noun, then pause this video and go watch that video first. It's very important that you have a complete understanding of what it means to decode or parse a noun. Now when we parse a verb, we give the three characteristics of the verb, which are person, number, and tense. Person, number, and tense. For nouns, we're also going to give the three characteristics, but three characteristics of a noun are gender, number, and case. Gender, number, and case. So before we attempt to parse the nouns and verbs in the sentences below, I want us to take a look at our abbreviations. So we'll begin by looking here at the abbreviations for case. Now our 5 cases, of course, are nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. We're going to actually abbreviate differently than the book tells you, because for each case, we're going to give the first 3 letters, just like we do with tense for verbs. So we're going to abbreviate these as NOM, GEN, DAT, ACC, and ABL. When it comes to the gender of the noun, we're going to write an M, an F, or an N, just as the book indicates. And then finally, when we have number, just like we do with our verbs, we're just going to write an S or a P. You don't have to write a PL. So those are going to be the abbreviations that we use when we're parsing nouns. Now, let's move to the first sentence that I want us to consider, and that is sentence number 2. We're going to skip sentence number 1 because it has something in it that we've actually not covered yet, and so I don't want us to be confused by it. Now, translating sentences is not as complicated as you might think. The first step in translating any sentence is to find the verb and parse it. There are 2 ways that you can find a verb. One is to look for a vocabulary word that you recognize as a verb. 2 is to look for an ending that you know comes from a verb. We have both of those here, as we should expect. We see the bought ending right here. Bought from bomb, boss, bought, bombus, bottus, bont. But of course we also see era, which comes from our vocabulary word errare, which means to wander. So we want to deal with this verb first by parsing it. So as we look at this ending, bomb, boss, bought, we know immediately that it's imperfect because those are imperfect tense endings. Now the T at the end of this particular ending tells us that what we have here is a third person singular verb. Bomb, boss, bought on the 3rd row for third person and in the left-hand column for singular. So to translate this verb all by itself, we would work from the back to the front. The T means he, she, or it. The ba means was or were. And era means wander. So he, she, or it was wandering, as in to wander off the path, to wander through the woods. He, she, or it was wandering. A quick tip on translating sentences. Anytime we have a third person verb, whether it's singular or plural, we're going to begin to be suspicious that we might have a subject in our sentence that is actually spelled out for us. If we don't have a noun functioning as the subject, then we'll just use the he, she, or it that's contained within the ending. But when we have a third person, we're going to ask ourselves, do I have a noun in the sentence that takes the place of the he, she, or it? We won't usually do that with first person or second person. We, I, you, and y'all, they usually stand without a subject taking their place, and that makes sense. But he, she, it, and they are often replaced by an actual subject. So we're going to take a look at our noun, which is at the beginning of the sentence, puer. Now, puer means boy, puer. This is a second declension noun. How do I know that? I know that because it's listed in my vocabulary list as puer. Puer-e. And this E right here, if you'll remember, the E in this second vocabulary form, the long I, tells me that it's a second declension noun. So I'm going to be thinking about my second declension endings. It's also masculine because we said that when the first form ends in an R or a US, it's a masculine second declension noun. If it ends in a UM, it's neuter. So that takes care of one part of the parsing for us. We know the gender there is masculine. But we need to figure out the number and the case. Now, the chant that we memorized was us, e, o, o, e, orum, is, os, is. That's the chant that we memorized for our second declension masculine nouns. And nowhere on that chant do we see an R for the ending. We have to remember two things. One, when your vocabulary word is listed, the first form that's actually listed is the nominative singular form. That's what it is. This is the genitive singular form. And then it's also helpful if we will remember that sometimes some second declension masculine nouns have an R at the end instead of a US. So we know by two ways that this is a nominative singular noun. We know because it's the first form listed. We also know because the R is an alternative ending for the nominative singular ending. So, as we come back, we're going to parse this as masculine, singular, and nominative. Now, why does that matter? Because the nominative form is for the subject of our sentence. So as I come to label this particular sentence, I have my verb here, and now I see that I have a nominative, so that's the subject of my sentence. Verb, subject, noun. So if I'm going to translate this sentence, I'm going to use puer as the subject, so boy, and I remember my verb was translated, he, she, or it was wandering, but boy replaces the he, so boy was wandering. You can add an article though, the, a, or and, whenever you feel like it makes the sentence sound better. Latin doesn't contain any articles, so we simply have to add them. So, as I come to translate this sentence, I'm going to translate it as either a or the. We'll go with the this time. The boy was wandering. Now you need that was in there. The was is for the imperfect, so you need to put the was in there. You don't want to say the boy wanders, the boy will wander, the boy wandered. You want the boy was wandering. So much for the first sentence we're dealing with. Let's move on to our next sentence, which is found right over here, sentence number 3. Immediately you recognize this is a slightly more complicated sentence because it has, let's get this other sentence out of the way, it has 3 words, not just 2. But we're going to start in the same way. We're going to find our verb and parse our verb. Well, as I look at these 3 words, only one of them has anything that could be a verb ending, and that's parabunt. Parabunt. Right there. There is our verb ending. Bunt. Now this comes from our future tense verb endings. Bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. Bunt. Since we've already said that it's future tense, we'll go ahead and label it here as future. And as I think about where that one is located, it's on the 3rd row, bimus, bitus, bunt, so 3rd person, but it's in the right-hand column, which makes it plural. Now, to translate this by itself, we would have to look at both parts of our ending. The unt tells me they, we're going to work toward the front, they. The bu is the future tense marker. It's actually a be, but it changes here. The future tense marker tells me will, so they will, and parare means to prepare. So this verb is translated, they will prepare. But remember, whenever we have a 3rd declension, we want to have our eyes open for a nominative noun to take the place of the pronoun they. And as we look at our sentence, we have 2 nouns to parse. Step number 2 in translating sentences is always to parse all of our nouns. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start with the very first noun, femini. Femini. The ending here is the AE. The AE. Now, the AE is found on our first declension endings. So if I write those out, let's find a good spot to do that. If I write those out, let's go up here. Ah, I, ah, I, autumn, east, os, and then east. If I write those out, then I can see very clearly that I have the I on here 3 times, the A, E. So how do I know? Is it genitive singular right here? Is it dative singular? Or is it nominative plural? Well, remember, we are looking for a nominative noun because of this third person. In fact, we are looking for a nominative plural because the verb is plural. So we're going to go ahead and assume that it's a nominative plural. So let's try that out. We're going to write nominative. Our case goes at the end. We're going to write plural. That's our number. And femini means women, so we could guess, and we'd be right, that this is a feminine noun. But we should also be memorizing the genders of all of our nouns when we learn them. So feminine, plural, and nominative. Now on to our next noun, kanom. Kanom. Here we have our ending, If we look back at our list to get here again, there it is, right there. It's in the singular column, so we might as well go ahead and label it as singular. And if we work our way through our cases, we have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and my abbreviation is ACC, accusative. And then the gender. Well, kanom means dinner. It means dinner. You cannot guess, based upon the word itself, what the gender is. Remember, words that we would consider to be neuter, that is, they would use the it pronoun, can be either masculine, feminine, or neuter in Latin. So we would have had to have memorized the gender of this word. It happens to be feminine, which you might have guessed because most of our first declension nouns are in fact feminine. All of them that we've learned so far are feminine. So here we have a feminine singular accusative noun. The next step in translating is to label our sentence. So we can go ahead and label our verb over here as the verb. And then we have 2 nouns. Remember, the nominative case here tells you that that's functioning as the subject of the sentence. So subject noun. And then the accusative case here tells you that this particular noun is functioning as the direct object. So we'll label it with a D-O. So now I have everything labeled. As long as I know the meanings of my words, I should be able to translate this particular sentence. The verb is they will prepare. The they is replaced by our subject noun femini. So we're going to have the women will prepare. Our direct object is the word kanom, which means dinner. The women will prepare dinner. So this sentence means the women will prepare dinner. All right, let's move on to our final sentence on this worksheet. Discipuli numerum spectant. Discipuli numerum spectant. All right, again, we'll start with our verb. We're looking for a verb ending, and I have a verb ending right here. Unt, from O-S-T, mustis unt. Those are our present tense endings, so I can go ahead and write P-R-E for present right here. Unt is on the 3rd row, and it's in the right-hand column. That makes it plural. 3rd person plural, present tense. Spectare, there's our stem, means to look at. So it's going to be it's going to be they look at, present tense. They look at. Or you can translate it as they are looking at. All right. Again, we have a 3rd person, so we're going to be suspicious and expect that we might find a nominative noun. And again, we're looking for a nominative plural noun, so it matches our verb. So let's take a look at our nouns. Our first noun is discipuli, and there's our ending, the long I. That tells me it's a second declension noun. Second declension noun. If I've memorized this word, I know that its vocabulary form is discipulus, discipuli. So it's a masculine noun. So we can go ahead and write that up here. It is indeed masculine. Now let's take another look, though, at our second declension endings. Us, e, o, o, and then e, orum, is, os, is. Once again, we have a form that occurs more than one time in our chant. So, which is it? Is it genitive singular or is it nominative plural? Well, we're looking for a nominative plural, so we are going to assume that it is, in fact, nominative and plural. So, let's go ahead and fill out our parsing. Plural here, N-O-M for nominative. N-O-M for nominative. All right, on to our final noun, numerum. Here is our ending, numerum. And here it is on our chant. So that is nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. So we can write down accusative here for the case. And it's in the singular column, the first column. So we can write down that it's singular. And then because the vocabulary form is numerus at the beginning, us or r signifies a masculine second declension noun. So we're going to give it masculine gender. So everything's parsed. Now all we need to do is label the sentence. Well, the verb is easy. Here's our verb. And then a nominative case is going to tell us that that's the subject of our sentence. Accusative case, that's the direct object of our sentence. So discipuli means student, but it's plural, so it's students. Students are looking at numbers. Students are looking at numbers. Again, we can add an article, but it's not necessary when you have plural nouns. English doesn't require an article, so we'll just do this really simply. Students are looking at, or if you prefer, students look at. Ooh, not numbers, I'm sorry. That's singular, isn't it? So we need to say a number or the number. Sorry about that. So students are looking at a number, or students are looking at the number. You can even say the students are looking at the number. All of those would be correct. All right, guys, I know this video has been a little bit long, but I wanted to take the time to explain parsing nouns to you and show you how it's done. So I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you in class.